Friday, December 6th. And this is this the 70th?
That's right.
The 70th weekly public meeting of Kwaai. Welcome, everybody. It's so great to be back. I was away. Ruth and I were both away for 2 weeks. Can't believe it. We got so much done. A lot to tell you about. And we're coming up to the end of the year. So let's get cracking. Myra, what's on the agenda for today?
Well, today we celebrate that you're back. And then we also talk about a couple of work group updates and talk about the election that just happened and how we're going to move forward, and then end with let's meet some new members. I'd love voices, and then we're off to our
Fantastic. So we're actually midway through the officer elections. We've had 3 candidates. Out of the 5 positions, we've had three candidate submissions. And I think what we'll do is we'll call it at that point. We will, I'll talk more about that later on, but why don't I give you an update, the December update for Kwaai, and that could be a good framework for reflecting on the past year. So let's see if you can see that. I'm going to just move some screens around so that I can continue seeing you while you're seeing me. And there we go. We'll move that to there. Great. So this is going to go into slideshow mode, and hopefully you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, there we go. So this is the December update. As we know, we're all here because we're part of a non-profit AI lab called Kwaai, with a mission to democratize AI. And we're doing that in practical ways, building personal AI, researching fundamental AI, and drafting policy. That's what we started out doing. And as we've started to actualize this, we can reflect over the last year what areas of the domain we've touched on and felt we had to spend more energy on. There's a small mention here of open source, that in order to resist this headlong rush towards a game over situation, says AI's exponential growth entails significant risk of a dystopian outcome. There's nothing actually stopping that from happening at the moment. So we feel that we need a grassroots movement that is volunteer-based. It's a non-profit that is based on open source software, and that could resist the concentration of wealth and power that's currently going on. I mean, in fact, I put a very provocative LinkedIn post. I posted it yesterday, doubling down on this notion and being even more assertive. Now's not the time to self-censor. Now's the time to speak out. You've got a window of opportunity to speak out. Soon, that window of opportunity will be gone. And you can't rely on government to defend you from the excesses of large corporations, of business, of capital. You can't rely on that now more than ever. So there's no cavalry coming. You are the cavalry. And it's important for us to recognize that the importance of the work we're doing and the mission. Okay. And it's not a pie in the sky, pardon the pun. It's not a pie in the sky idea. This has been done before. We use Linux as the template, the example of how a grassroots intervention can correct the course of an industry, of an economy. And Linux is a great example of a democratization of a certain domain, the server operating system domain, and the industry is healthier for it. Okay, so we're building personal AI, and this is how Doc Searls envisages personal AI. An agent, an assistant that's truly uplifting for humanity. And we specifically don't want to build this as a spy or an eavesdropper, basically a double agent, as Bruce Schneier calls it. We need to build this recognizing the dignity and the worth and the loyalty to its owner. And the owner is the owner that owns the AI. It's their data. The AI should respect the privacy rights of the owner of the data. This isn't the tacit assumption that is made by business at the moment. The tacit assumption is that the data of individuals is fair game, and they can harvest that and monetize that to their heart's content. The window of opportunity for resisting that tacit assumption and making that the rule of law is definitely, that window of opportunity seems to be closing. The attempts to regulate the spying on individuals, attempts to regulate the privacy of data, seems to be under assault. And we definitely need to be on the side of personal empowerment and respecting the data rights of individuals. So, look, I'm preaching to the choir here. We all buy into this notion. Now's the time for us to double down on being assertive and being vocal about the need to build truly personal AI. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we start actually by building a movement. And so I want to dwell a bit on the structure of our movement. You can see here we have a selection of officers. We're going to talk about the officer elections that are currently underway. The board of directors, we've just elected a new board, and we'll be holding our first board meeting, in fact, the annual board meeting, and we'll time that for the anniversary of our nonprofit, which is December 11. So we'll build it around there. We have a large number of individuals, over 100 now, that have self-selected as advisors. We need to organize that group a lot better, and in the coming weeks we'll talk about either running an election or coming up with a leadership mechanism for the advisory council. The purpose of the advisory council is to create propositions that get offered up to the board to vote on, and that's the way in which the board guides the officers. The board elects the officers, so we'll talk about the officer elections shortly. And then, of course, we're nothing without the vast foot soldiers, the army of volunteers that we have that are donating their tired hours, their time between jobs, donating that because they're passionate about the cause. So let's talk about the board that we've just hired: Larry Namer, Ruth, Ted Cohen, Rika Nakazawa, Sam Johnson, and Eunice Atif. We look for this board to help guide the day-to-day operations, but the way they're not engaged on a day-to-day basis. They engage with us at maybe quarterly board meetings, and they're there to provide guidance, but it's on matters of governance and strategy that the board really gets involved and votes on specific propositions. So this is important in maintaining the governance of a democratic organization that's going to be fair and accountable. Look, Sam Johnson has highlighted the fact, or the ways in which organizations like ours, starting off with lofty, altruistic goals can be subverted. Sam is on the board, and Sam, I'm hoping that you're going to be vigilant to make sure that Kwaai is not vulnerable to being subverted in the same way. One of the failings of organizations like ours is the assumption that the individuals that started the organization will always be there. That's not the case. If we're building a truly eternal organization, an immortal organization, an organization that outlives the individuals that started it, it needs to be based on ideas and rules and guiding principles. And those guiding principles should not require the original author of that principle to be still in office. And so it's very important that we, in the next round of deliberation of the board, we start we revise our boilerplate bylaws to actually inoculate ourselves against that type of subversion. Okay, that's a big job. Redoing the bylaws, crafting bylaws for a particular organization sometimes takes many years. I know Ruth was on a teachers union, and they crafted their bylaws. Typically, a committee gets formed, and that committee would be from the organization. And so it's not the board actually doing that deliberation in private. We want to make sure that the crafting of a set of bylaws, the customization of the bylaws, the sort of boilerplate bylaws that we took from when we incorporated, that customization of those bylaws needs to be an open deliberation, and it needs to be one that's purposeful and transparent. Okay, so that's going to be the work of the board over the next, I'd say over the next year. It might take that long. We'll see if we can get a draft set, an initial set of bylaws. Maybe those the most urgent bylaws changes can be brought out. Maybe we bring it out in phases, but I don't want to spitball this. This is going to be the work that the board has to do. Okay, so now we've got an organization. What is it that we do? Well, we execute. We build stuff. We are largely an organization of highly technical folk. It's about 80% of us are developers, and the rest are split between research and policy. And so we see those as the legs of a three-legged stool, all holding up personal AI. Great. Well, look, here's our ecosystem. You've seen this before, but what I wanted to do is update you on a couple of things. It's on the funding sources. We formed an operations team. It includes Day Waterbury. Day we met through Doc Searles. Day, I met him at IIW. Day is a grants expert. And so Day has signed up to be our grants coordinator. He'll be working closely with Afshin Beheshti. So Afshin's our president, but Afshin's now in a new position at the University of Pittsburgh, and has been advising us on how to apply for federal grants in coordination with academic institutes. So we'll be working closely with Afshin to pick out. We've already created a funnel of about $44 million worth of grant opportunities, and Day and Afshin are going to be working together in order for us to go after those grants. Look, with a 10% success rate in grant applications, that's worth going after, and that could be an important funding source. The other funding source is from sponsorships for events and for corporate membership fees. And that revenue stream is being managed by Jim Chappell. Jim, I don't think he's on the call. If he is, we'll get him to talk later on. But Jim, I also met through Doc. Doc's a great recruiter for us for high level talent. The operations team has already been meeting for the last month or so. We have weekly meetings on Monday. If you feel that you can contribute to that, you want to work on the revenue side of the business, of the organization. It's very business-like. It's the construction of funnels. It's targeting who we're going after, and developing campaigns, and it's a sales operation. And guys like Jim and Day and Afshin, these are professionals that are very businesslike. If you feel like that's where you can contribute, let us know. Our meetings are on Monday, 10 a.m. and that's 10 a.m. Pacific. Let me know and I'll invite you to the meeting. Okay, so here's the traction update as of the end of November. Pat yourselves on the back. Together, collectively, by individual contributions and by the corporations that have contributed infrastructure or services. These are all in-kind contributions. It sums up to about $9.2 million since we started the organization. That's fantastic. That would have been money that, let's say we were a for-profit startup, that would have been service charges that we've been paying. That would have been payroll. We're now at 700 members, just over 700. And we've, I do recall, and you might recall, I said we were going to probably end the year at 1,000. We're not. We're not going to end the year at 1,000. We deliberately took our foot off the gas in recruiting new volunteers in the middle of the summer. We just realized we just couldn't onboard these volunteers fast enough. That's going to change. Because we've automated a lot of our processes and we're working on that. I want to thank Sunity in particular. I want to call out her help, but also the leadership of Eunice and other contributors in the technical automation of our onboarding process. It's super important. We've got a lot more that we can do there. And if you've got any ideas, or if you feel like that's where you can contribute, let us know. Join the Automation Design Studio. It's a Slack channel. There's a weekly meeting and there's a backlog of work that they're working on to automate the management of this army of volunteers. Okay. What else can I say? We launched the EMEA chapter. It's pretty cool. They meet every other week, bi-weekly meetings. We just had one yesterday. And one of the members, Walter, is writing his master's thesis on Kwaai, on the how you create a grassroots organization with a mission of change. And it's quite exciting. I didn't think that we were ready to have, sort of a documentary done about us, but I'm his thesis advisor, so I guess we're going to go along with this. I'm really grateful to Christian Randieri for his leadership and for creating a set of work groups that are very different to the work groups that we have in the Americas, in the sort of home chapter of Kwaai. And it's focused more on the needs of that time zone, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. The EMEA chapter is going to have its first summit in Venice, in Italy. So put that on your calendar. It's June 17 through 19. If you're going to be in Europe, if you've got a Europe trip planned, plan it around that, and we'd love you to participate. Okay. So you can see there how the donations have split up. We are clocking about just over $1 million of in-kind contributions a month. That's a great run rate. And so what this means, even though it's not cash that's coming into a bank account, it's certainly value that's being deposited into an organization. And it's value that you would have had to have paid if this was a for-profit entity. You'd have had to have bought that at a market rate. Okay. It is also a great testament to what you can do with a volunteer organization with zero budget. It's also important for us to use this when we are fundraising. We're not fundraising and asking for charity. We're not saying, hey, we have nothing and we need your help. That's not what we're saying. Our message is, here is what we're doing with zero contribution. We are looking for a matching donation. And so what we'll be doing, and the sort of pitch that Jim Chappell will be making when he engages with sponsors and with corporate members, would be for them, we will pick a certain project that we're working on, a work group, and say, okay, here's the amount of value that's already been invested, and here's the monthly investment that's being made. We'd like you to make a matching contribution to that. And so there's a whole structure of the way in which we can admit corporations into the organization carefully and deliberately with the guidelines in place, but to allow them to target their sponsorship at the particular areas where they where their particular business emphasis lies. So more on that later on. If you feel like you want to contribute to how we structure that, let me know, and I'd love to get more input on refining our pitch to corporations. Okay, this is a tired old slide, and I'm showing it here just to give us all a sense of urgency that we have not launched the beta yet. This is a problem. This is a problem of us having made promises and not delivered on it. We said we were going to deliver the beta in Q4. Well, okay, we're in the last month of Q4, and let's see if we can do that. We've got we're close. We're tantalizingly close, and I'm grateful to the hard work that's been done by the software development teams from Arcus Nexus and all of the other volunteers. We've got the OS team, the PiOS team working on the operating system, and then we've got the Arcus Nexus team working on the assistant, working on the front end. And then we've got iBridge, who've set up the data center that's going to host it. We're at that stage, and we've been at a stage for maybe the last month where the developers say, well, it's working on my laptop, but we haven't completed the automation of deployment from the running code to a deployment in a data center, and making that repeatable, so that when you make changes, you can have a continuous deployment and a whole build process. Well, it turns out once you start setting that as a goal, you start finding other areas in the design that are broken or need attention. So we're in that mode at the moment. I'm hoping that we're going to get a deployment running in the iBridge data center in December. I'm not confident that we're going to be able to launch the beta in December. I'm saying that to be provocative, and maybe you can prove me wrong. But I'd love it if we can have a serious effort to try and get the beta launched. We've got 30 universities and colleges that are waiting for this software, and it'll be disappointing if we don't deliver. Okay, so here's what we here's the long-term roadmap. I've shown this before, and each month that I come and revisit this, I take this arrow here. You can see how the rest of the arrows are kind of bunched up, and I widen this. I vastly underestimated how long it would take to develop the EDU beta. Once we do that, once we release it and it's gone through its beta test, this will be another source of revenue for Kwaai. The concept of personal AI is it's going to be free. It's going to be free for you to own and operate. You can own and you can host it. If you host it yourself, it'll be free. However, if you want us to host it for you, then we will charge you a hosting fee, and that will be a small revenue stream for us. I want us to be able to get to that point reasonably quickly. And then once we're there, once we have a compelling user experience, something that delivers compelling value, that respects the data rights of the individuals, it'll be two things. It'll be an example to the industry of, hey, here's how you could do it a whole lot better than you're doing it. And of course, we'll have for-profit competitors, but we're a non-profit. We don't care. They might choose to license the software, in which case that'll be a whole different conversation. So why license it if it's open source? Why don't they just take it? Well, they can. But the open source industry has numerous examples of open source software still being licensed on a for-profit basis. And just go and look at the Linux and look at Red Hat. So there's still going to be opportunity for revenue to come to fund our organization. It need not be it's important for us to find those revenue opportunities. Why? In order for us to be a credible alternative to the monopolizing forces, we need to be self-sufficient. And so this is the bold goal here. It's the end state of an organization that is credible and enduring. It needs to be self-sufficient. It's not accumulating unlimited wealth like other corporations. No, it's self-sufficient, which means it funds its own operations. And that is an important goal that we need to get to. And we get to that by finding those revenue sources to be able to fund our ambitions. It's important as we navigate towards this end state for the organization that we inoculate ourselves, as I said, inoculate ourselves from being subverted. Okay, I get a bit preachy here on this slide, but look, there's important stuff going on. We've got personal AI we're developing. We've got a research stream, which is quite exciting. We've got work on distributed RAG going on. Thanks so much to Brian Ragazzi and a few others that are supporting Brian's work. We've got work on homomorphic vector search. That looks very promising. That's the subject of 2 grant applications. And then we've got Kwaai, which is a very different visualization or a different imagination of what AI infrastructure could look like. Rather than it being centralized in data centers in the cloud, it is distributed in a digital public infrastructure. If you want to find out more about that, want to participate, let us know. There's a whole channel on that. Great work being done by Daryl Sarant on subquadratic neural networks, and catch up on his talk. In fact, his talk went long, like my talk's going long, and he we actually continued in the spillover conversation in the after party. So it's worth catching up on his work. This is going to be important because we need to make neural networks more efficient and scalable so they can run at the edge. Okay, I'm going to skip over the rest. Let's see. Here are officers, but we're midway through officer elections. Let me just talk about what these positions are. The chair CEO position is the one that I inhabit at the moment, and I put in my application to continue in that position. Afshin Beheshti's got the president role, and he submitted his application to stay in that role. The Doc Searles Chief Intention Officer is a ceremonial position. Doc will have that position in perpetuity. And it wasn't one of the roles that was defined in our initial bylaws. Now we will be changing those bylaws, but there were two other positions that were actually three positions. There was a vice president position, a secretary, and a treasurer. And when we started the corporation, Matt Small had the vice president position. Matt got busy and had to step down from that. So I took on that position. And I also had the secretary and the treasurer position. So it's a bit of work. So we requested that other people volunteer. So far, we've got one candidate for the VP position, and I think he's going to be a great at it. Turns out we don't have multiple candidates for the same positions, so the election is going to be more of a proposal that's made to the board, and the board will simply vote on that. So that's it. You'll hear more about that next week and the week after. I think actually next week we'll probably announce who the officers are. You've met the board already, and how can you participate? Well, you can volunteer. If you haven't signed up yet, do so. This is a public call. It's a public meeting, and but if you've not become a member, go to Kwaai.ai and sign up. You can simply click the donate button. Would you believe it? We have donations trickling in. It'll probably end the year with about $1,000 in cash donations that have come in over the year. That's not nothing. You know, the sort of things that we pay for Zoom, we pay for all the various sort of mini services that they all add up, and and that's going out of a bank account, and so any cash coming in is useful. Sponsorship, as we mentioned, Jim Chappell is going to be is running that whole sponsorship funnel, and this could be sponsorship of events, or it could be becoming a corporate member. And so these are the ways in which these are the current revenue streams. Of course, once the software is deployed, that could also be a useful revenue stream. Great. Okay, so that is it. I'm going to stop sharing there. I think I've gone way over time, and I'm going to hand back to you, Myra.
Awesome. So I did just put the link to sign up in the group chat. So please, if you haven't already, please go ahead and do that. And I think we're at work group updates. So we can either start with Pi Assistant, or we can start with Pi OS, and then we'll move on to just finalizing stuff for the elections.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's see. Sam, your video's on. You're ready? Maybe you can give us a...
Yeah, okay. So we had a, let me actually, if I can, share the screen here so I can talk to what I'm looking at. So We have been progressing. One area that is most interesting is the work that being done here by Patricia, integrating a system called Light LLM, which will give you the ability to have PyOS being like the front end for a whole bunch of different models, whether hosted locally or remotely. Like in this case, OpenAI on Azure, models on Amazon Bedrock, like Gemini, Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, and so on. And so this is a significant breakthrough for us to have this in the system. So we're steadily making progress on quite kind of some of the big rocks, if you like. Another area that has been developing is the work being done, and I've got a backlog of PRs here, most of which relate to the assistant. We also have some good work being done here on the authentication side by Robert and Sanu and so on as well. We have made progress on some of the architectural side, like looking at introducing a PI, like PAI, command line tool, so you can do things like Pi install app or Pi activate app, or even like Pi chat, like what's the price of eggs in China, or whatever the question is you've got, which will make it a lot easier for like integrating into DevOps workflows and so on. It's one thing to containerize it, but then currently it's all API driven, but there's a React admin front end, which is kind of, it's not easily automated. It's good for users. It looks like Kubernetes, but it's not easily automated. In parallel, like, I'm working 110% on Kwaai topics, Kwaai related topics, at least. One of the things that is going on there, of course, is the open source. Well, since opensource.org is coming up, we've got this whole thing about the open source AI definition. We have created cast off a life raft at opensourcedefinition.org, which is a copy of the open source definition and the historical versions of it, and a repository. We've started work on what the future of open source could look like. Things like explicitly incorporating the 4 freedoms, and then expanding the scope to cover data, because the main issue with the open source definition is that it does very well. And by the way, if anybody wants to have a look at kind of where I'm at on this, it's you can read the a dozen or so articles I've written, or 2 now, at samjohnston.org. But where the issue is with the open source definitions is on completeness. So the open source definition is very good on openness, but it's not explicit about data. So the year after they released the open source definition, ID Software released Quake, or at least the Quake engine, but without the packs, right, which are like zip files containing all of the textures and so on, right? And so ever since then, this has been a problem. People have been releasing software without the required data. And AI models are just a type of data that kind of gets animated by the code. And some of these concepts are now starting to become clear. So what we need is to explicitly solve the completeness problem, right? And so efforts like Linux Foundation have been working on like what components of an AI model need to be included for that thing to be functional and potentially open. But then they allow like the data, which is the source for AI, to be made available under any license or even unlicensed, like the crawl, right? Common crawl. So they're really good in completeness, but just totally fail in openness. And then you've got the OSI's open source AI definition, which fails in both completeness and openness by, not requiring the data at all. So that is there's 96 licenses which meet this definition. That is being discussed here at the, we've created and host, and I guess this is another contribution that Kwaai is making through me to the community. So we now have a discussion here, and you can see it's fairly active. Whereas if you go to the existing open source discussion, like there hasn't been a third-party post since October 26th. So like well over a month now, almost 2 months ago, since there was anybody who wasn't the OSI, posting on their forum. So we're now kind of the commons, if you like, where people are having these discussions. So again, if you want to jump in there, that'd be great. And the reason I give that context largely for people joining, since we're doing kind of a refresh, rehash on what Kwaai is about, is this is the new thing that I've just published overnight, which is an open weight definition. And the idea here is that we take some of the pressure off open source, because there's models like IBM Granite, which are being released under the Apache, an open source license, in this case Apache, right? Which means that you've got kind of the compiled binary, like Winamp, for example, that you can download and run, but it can only change in very limited ways. But that's what we would call, and we're encouraging people to call open weight. And you might recognize this from here, from the open source definition, because it is based on the open source definition. And the only thing that we've done out of the 10 points or principles in the open source definition, which protect the 4 freedoms, is change the source code term to talk about model weights, and kind of basically, surgically removed the tooth from the open source definition that talks to this concept of source, which I think is quite important too. So if people want to have a look at this and kind of give some feedback on it, yours are the first eyes that are seeing it outside of mine. So please feel free to do that. Then down the bottom here, there's a link to the GitHub repo where you can kind of learn about that. The last thing, because I'm well into my 2 minutes here, that I've been working on is the AI Action Summit, which is a series of convergence challenges that are being hosted by the at least there's the French president, and so these are things like cure cancer, right? And so what we've submitted here under the topic of global AI governance is to create essentially an open source alliance where we have national organizations, including, for example, the OSI for the US, but also others like the Free Software Foundation, Free Software Foundation of Europe, and then a whole bunch of others like CNLL and so on, who would be candidates for kind of representing, hosting localized versions of the open source definition, so translated into the local language. And then also part of that, of course, is the 96 licenses, which we're also hosting. This is quite an important function of the OSI, is to host these licenses. So we're doing that as well, right, as kind of a drop-in replacement. And some of these licenses might be, for example, incompatible with copyright law in Japan. And so they might need to, remove them from Japan or something like that, right? So all those localization issues and advocacy. And so we'll see, this process came out on Monday, and the deadline was yesterday, Thursday. And there's an event next Wednesday in Paris, where they'll be launching these, and we'll actually know if we've been accepted by next Wednesday. I don't know yet that I'll be able to go over there for that, unfortunately. I might try, but we also have a meeting then here, speaking of Doc, and Joyce and their work on distributed identity. There is the Global Acceptance Network. And so I've got a meeting with a workshop with some of the folks behind, including Daryl and Drummond next Wednesday in Vancouver. So lots of activity, lots of work going on. That's kind of a broader update to bring everybody up to speed on what that's all about. Let me see if I can close that window.
Thanks so much, Sam. Wow. A lot going on. I wonder if we can hear from the assistant team. I see Roy was on the call. Is Roy?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Roy.
Everyone. Hey, this is Roy from Nexus. Well, about my assistant, this week we finished the integration with the PAS key, so we are able to have login and register user in the PAS system. This feature and other feature that was developed by Melanie from Nexus also. We are ready to have a version to deploy in a server. So we are need to tell this week to the server guys in order to deploy and have some users to play a bug bash or something like that we have that in a server that for other people can use. Yes. And the other feature that we are working that is almost done is the share. We already implement a share with user inside the organization. but we are working in a chair for user outside organization that is almost done. We hope to have finished for the next week also.
Okay, so shares is an important feature, obviously.
Yeah.
But just getting it up in the data center so so people can try it out would be great. So I'm looking forward to that next week. If we can get that first goal of getting it deployed, that'd be great. So work with Jeff Kramer on that topic. Reach out to Jeff and then you've got other folks who could help you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Roy. I just wanted to have a shout out for Annie. I know Annie is left Arcus. She still wants to volunteer, but she's relocated to Canada now. Is she in Vancouver?
Actually, she lives in Canada right now and have like 1 or 2 years working in Canada. She left the Arcus Nexus, but she will continue helping with volunteer in the organization.
Fantastic. I want to thank Eunice. Eunice was on the call a moment ago, and he's not on the call now. But Eunice has introduced us to other development companies, and we're following up with them to try and replicate the relationship that we have with Arcus Nexus to get us more software resource. Thanks so much. Great. Look, we got 10 minutes left. It'd be a good time to hear.
Right. Sorry. I think Yulia wanted to talk a little bit about the project management track.
Product management. Fantastic.
Product management. Yes.
Sorry, it might have been AV who wanted to talk about this too. This is my first time in this meeting.
Welcome.
I can go.
So I think we had a larger question, which maybe we want to take to the after party, but maybe if you want to give a condensed version.
Yeah, just 30 seconds. So we are in a process. We wrote 6-pager for V2, reflecting the vision that we're putting forward, and we're in a process of identifying top user stories that are going to go into that vision. I think after that, maybe next Tuesday after our meeting, we can share the document broadly, but that's basically an update. Oh, and it should have maybe on Tuesday, maybe shortly after, it will have like an MVP definition as well. Proposed. Okay. All of it is proposed. And I think what we're looking for from the group is which engineering or design people we can start discussing this with and refining it so we can,
Great. Looking forward to
take it forward.
Riza, the question of when what we are developing as product managers, when that will be developed, because we probably don't have time for that to be ready for the March hackathon, right? So what are we defining for? Like, when is our definition expected to be developed? I mean, what time frame are we looking at?
I think you're going to create the vision of what what we want to build, the concept, and then think about the project planning afterwards. So I'd not be constrained by an artificial timeline. First of all, come up with a concept, and then if it's going to take 1 year to develop, 10 years to develop, that so be it. But come up with a concept first. That was the pitch. Remember when we had our meeting, I said, let's not obsess about project planning software in advance of not knowing what we want to build. So I'm going to say it publicly now. Product management is not project management. Product management is more about inhabiting the problem domain of the user and coming up with the artifacts that product managers come up with in order to communicate the concept, communicate a solution of solving a problem. So it includes persona analysis, user stories, user
journeys.
and storyboarding that and diagramming that and being able to talk about that. None of that is Gantt charts or Kanban charts. None of that. That comes afterwards. And sometimes we get obsessed by the easy stuff. Project management is frankly easy. Greg explained it to us. Greg basically had a session here where he talked about how project management's done. The hard stuff is the bit that we avoid, and that's the product management. And that is coming up with the concept of it. And it requires someone that's opinionated. It requires someone like a Steve or a Yulia, someone that is going to be, it's rarely done by a committee. Good product management, good product concepts come from an opinionated mind that comes up with crazy concepts. It appears to be crazy, but you've got to be passionate about it and so on. And gosh, I'm going to be provocative and say we need that. We actually don't have a vision of what the user experience is going to be like for a next generation chatbot or next generation agent. What does personal AI look like? How do we engage with it? And that's going to be super important. Don, your hand's up.
Yeah, I think one of the major things that I've seen that might be a hole that we can fix though is demystification of AI as a potential funding stream, because there's no standard for how we introduce AI into society, and that's like a major opening that we can potentially exploit. Because if we actually demystify AI to the colleges that we might be running betas in, right? We can build trust. We can collect non-identifiable types of data, qualitative data on how people are actually using these products ahead of time, right? How they interact, what's their aversions, things of that nature. So that way, when we're building according to what will make them trust what we're building.
Very interesting. Okay, maybe we can pick up on that in the after party. Fantastic. Let's hear from some new voices.
Sorry, is that a thing? After party is a thing? Like, is it actual event? Sorry, I just don't know.
Actual event. And
Okay.
in the chat.
The event, Yulia. I put it in the chat, but I will also, I know I added you to a few meetings. I'll make sure I add you to this one too.
Thank you. I got it. Yes, I see it now. Sorry. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I see there are some new faces, new names on the list of attendees.
Just pick.
Put your hand up if you want to speak. Otherwise, I'm going to pick on you. Okay, I'm going to pick on some people. Jordan. Okay, new names that there we go. Jordan, tell us about yourself.
Oh no, I've been here. I just haven't been on in a while. How you guys doing? Hopefully everything is okay.
That's okay.
Really liking the progress you guys are making.
Okay, great. Jordan, where are you based?
I'm in the Los Angeles area.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hopefully we can meet up in person. I'm in LA as well. Okay,
Right.
Who else? I'm only seeing first names. Tabin. I think you're a member already, aren't you? We've heard from you.
Yep. That's correct.
Where are you located?
I'm from Texas.
Excellent. Okay. Great. New names and even past offenders. Steven's Meat Geek. That's Steve Vitka's note taker. Okay. I'm gonna have him. Steve, we haven't heard from you in your videos off. You're normally not so shy. What's new in your world? Steve is unusual.
Well, I'm out taking a walk. That's why, got a little break on here. Winter has descended on the East Coast, so any chance to get outside.
Okay, I'm gonna call on some other people. Ira, I'm gonna pick on you. I want to thank you for arranging a fantastic, a whole series of introductions. I just got off the call with Faye Arjamandi, and she's going to be a speaker on the 20th of December. And gosh, there's a tremendous alignment with what Faye is doing and with what Kwaai wants to do. And some of the things that's going on, some of the work that's going on in our labs is also relevant there. So we are talking about, how we can how they can donate software and technology into open source for to further the Kwaai cause and other stuff. But it's the first of many conversations. Thank you so much, Ira, for your support and
I'm so happy to hear that, because for one thing, I could just tell that Faye is operating at a level where we can really start to translate, I would consider to be ancient wisdom into technology. And I think that that's kind of like where she lives, and she's putting together edge computing for those purposes. And I just look forward to hearing all of the later in the month's stories about the way that the two of you are just geeking out about stuff and all the details therein, because I see alignment there. Yeah.
It was amazing that in 30 minutes we would get to a conversation point that would normally take many hours with other professionals. We didn't have to do that 101. We went straight into the masterclass.
It's because you know that you both have tolerated me for so long. That's why you both know what it's like. Because like you were saying, you're looking for people that when it comes to product, that's not my background, but I do know that every great idea sparks from someone saying something that's so off the wall and has so much conviction about its likelihood to succeed that they overcome the adversity in order to bring it to market. And so I think that that's ultimately what you're describing. And some of the things that have happened recently, and I don't know whether or not we're going to just segue into the after party, because
we could,
as an update, you tell me how much time we have, because well, you did ask me to speak, Reza, so I'm going to give you an update now. You did ask me to speak.
I did.
Or if you want, seriously, I can punt it into the after party. Let me know. There's just there's a lot to update.
Let's take it in more detail in the after party. Okay. I just want to make sure we shout out to various individuals. Richard Witt said he sent his apologies. Doc sent his apologies. Couldn't make it, but we're in there. He says we're in his thoughts. Liam, before I went away on the trip, Liam Broza, I had a fantastic conversation with Liam and his team, and I'm looking forward to the follow-up that's going to happen. And Liam, maybe if you're on the after party, we can dive in a bit deeper. But I think let's call it here. And Mark Vega, you've come off mute. Come on, that's it. Just say a few words and take us out.
Great. Love you, Reza. Thank you for seeing that. To those who are here, I want to point something out. Ira Liss, a great example, great example. Sometimes we're coming to this organization, we can't put our heads around it exactly. We want to volunteer and don't know how. Ira says, you know what? I don't know either. Doesn't matter, but I have a great network and great people. Reza's good. My other contacts are good. He just puts people together. That is sufficient and glorious volunteerism for this organization. Don't think that your current contacts are irrelevant or somehow you need to do more than just open up open up your mouth and talk to people just a little bit. Even if you can't wrap your heads around it, doesn't matter. Step in and come back in. Thank you, Reza, very much. And Ira, rock star. Thank you both.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks. On that note, thank you very much. See you in the after party.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.